The desert heat shimmered off the tarmac, blurring the distant hangars into a wavering mirage. The SEAL leaned against a Humvee, arms crossed, smirking just enough for her to notice. "Bet you won't take it that low," he said, his voice carrying over the hot wind, loud enough for the small cluster of operators to hear. Laughter rippled through them, the kind that wasn't about humor, but about drawing lines. Major Erin Keller said nothing. Her flight helmet hung at her side, visor glinting like a mirror. The A-10 Thunderbolt II loomed behind her, its gun snout pointed toward the horizon, waiting. She didn't need to tell them she'd been here before, both in this war zone and in this quiet gauntlet of doubt. She simply looked at the man, eyes steady. The manual's minimum altitude for a close air support run was etched into every pilot's memory. She knew it as well as her own name. She also knew that rules were written for averages, not for moments when lives balanced on seconds. And right now, the men on the ground needed more than averages. Erin Keller didn't fit the caricature they expected. She was neither loud nor eager to prove herself in words. Her uniform was sun-bleached, the stitching fraying at the cuffs from deployments so numerous she'd stopped counting. Her boots carried the stubborn desert dust of Kandahar, Fallujah, and other places with names she rarely spoke outside the squadron. Her hands bore faint burns from the time her canopy heater failed over the Hindu Kush, forcing her to descend into a canyon of shifting cloud and ice. Each movement a bargain with gravity. Her left knee ached on humid days, a lingering gift from an emergency ejection 12 years earlier when the right engine burst into flame over the Gulf. But she was still here, still flying, still answering calls from soldiers who would never know her face but would never forget the sound of her arrival overhead. And yet, despite it all, she'd heard the whispers too many times. She's good for a woman. She's careful, maybe too careful. She wouldn't push it. Hours earlier, the radio call had come in. An Allied team was pinned down on the edge of a dried riverbed, surrounded by enemy positions dug into the cliffs. A canyon wall cut their visibility. The JTAC's voice was tight. They needed eyes and firepower closer than the manual recommended. Erin didn't hesitate. She requested coordinates, already tracing the terrain in her mind. She knew that canyon. She'd flown above it twice in the last month. But today, the margin for error would be thinner than the skin on her aircraft. The SEALs had been nearby for their own operation. When they heard what she intended, the skepticism was instant, not outright cruelty, but the unspoken code of those who doubted outsiders. In their world, respect was currency, and she hadn't earned theirs. Not yet. Every pilot knew the difference between bravery and recklessness was measured in inches and seconds. She had sworn to follow the manual for safety, but she had also sworn to protect those who fought on the ground. It was the kind of choice that came without applause. If she flew low and made the run, there would be no medal for breaking protocol. If she refused, the men might not live to see another sunrise. The SEAL, who'd smirked earlier, stepped closer, his voice quiet now. "You screw this up, Keller, and they're done." She met his eyes. "They're already done if I don't." In the cockpit, the world became a glass dome around her. The desert below stretched into gold and shadow. She eased the throttles forward, the engine's steady vibration settling into her bones. The manual's number flashed in her head. She passed it, dropped lower. The cliffs rose on either side, and she felt the wind shear twist at her wings. She descended further still, so low she could see the faded graffiti left by shepherd boys years ago on a rock face. The JTAC's voice crackled in her ear. "Closer, closer, hold." From above, the A-10 is a beast. From down here, between canyon walls, it was a dare against physics. She rolled in, lined up the GAU-8 Avenger, and let loose a short burst, the kind that changes the map of a battlefield in seconds. Rock and dust erupted from the enemy position. The gunfire aimed at the pinned soldiers faltered, then died. Pulling up was the hardest part, not for the aircraft, for her heart. The adrenaline threatened to unsteady her hands, but she kept the climb smooth, slow, deliberate. Above the canyon rim, she banked and looked down. Movement below told her the team was moving again. Alive. She switched to a secure channel. "You're clear. Keep moving." No cheering. No thanks. just the kind of silence that meant survival. When she landed back at the forward airstrip, the heat had not lessened. The SEAL stood near the flight line, waiting. The smirking one step forward, no grin this time. In his hand, he held a patch, their unit insignia. He offered it without a word. She took it, nodding once, and tucked it into her flight suit. One of the younger SEALs muttered, almost to himself, "That's lower than I've ever seen anyone take it." The older one glanced at him. That's because she wasn't trying to prove she could. She was trying to make sure they could come home. Later, when a fellow pilot asked if it had been worth breaking protocol, she said only, "Rules keep us safe, but sometimes they keep us from saving others." And to the crew chief who remarked on the risk, she replied, "You can't measure courage in feet or meters. You measure it in the people who get to go home." Weeks later, a photo arrived in the squadron-ready room, a grainy image of that rescued team, all of them grinning in front of a mess tent somewhere far from gunfire. On the back, in black marker, was a single line. "Thanks for flying lower than the book ever imagined." It wasn't framed. It wasn't hung on the wall. But Erin kept it folded in her flight bag, alongside the SEAL patch. Because she knew the truth. Some victories don't need parades. They live quietly, in the space between doubt and trust. There are moments when silence speaks louder than the roar of engines or the crack of gunfire. Major Erin Keller didn't win anyone over with speeches. She didn't need to. Respect, real respect, is carved in action, not words. In the end, she showed that rules matter, but people matter more. And that sometimes, the most dangerous thing a person can do is underestimate the one who refuses to boast. If you believe courage is about what you do when no one is clapping, share this story, comment where you're watching from. And remember, the quietest heroes often fly the lowest.